chairing this morning panel, which has changed a little bit because of the fact that two people who were supposed to come today haven't arrived and won't be with us. And that means that we have three speakers this morning, the first of whom is Beres Ekinci, who for quite a long time was the first secretary of the Turkish mission to the United Nations, a career diplomat, now the head of the Energy Department inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Istanbul. She will be talking about Turkey's energy security strategy. All three of our speakers have PowerPoints. As you can see, these proceedings are being filmed, so even if you miss something in translation, so to speak, today, you can always get it online in just a few weeks. And we also hope to have a publication result from this. Our second speaker is my friend Piotr Naimski, who's the Vice Rector of the Higher School of Business, National Louis University in Nowy Sącz, Poland, which is a co-sponsor of this conference. Professor Naimski actually is a chemist and has been doing all sorts of things in the last few years which don't really sort of connect with his professional training. But he is, if not the, then one of the leading energy specialists in Poland today, as you will see from his presentation on Poland's energy security strategy. And our third speaker is Paweł Konzal, who runs the Polish gas company's unit in Brussels, Belgium, and whose job obviously includes a lot of contact with the European Union. And he will be talking about the compatibility of EU policy with national strategies, which is really a very large topic and a very good question. How does Brussels make up its mind about what to do in the area of energy, and who is happy and who is not happy with those decisions? So that's what we're going to be doing this morning, and now I would like to ask Beres Ekinci to make a presentation.
In our region during these last couple of months, and developments which may have direct effects on European energy security. I will be talking today on the main aspects of Turkey's energy security. I will be talking today then on the main aspects of Turkey's energy security strategies, stressing also upon projects that would confront Turkey's role as a transit country and also as an energy terminal. Turkey's Turkey's energy strategy is multidimensional with the following objectives. Prioritize energy supply security activities through a well-balanced resource diversification in order to minimize the negative effects of import dependency. Second, reform and liberalize the energy sector to enhance the productivity and efficiency as well as ensure transparency. Third, ensure sustainable exploitation of energy sources and invest in all stages of the energy chain, taking into account the environmental concerns. Fourth, intensify the research and development on energy technologies. And last but not least, contribute to the European energy security and become an energy terminal. With a rapidly growing economy, Turkey has become one of the fastest growing energy markets in the world. Turkey has been experiencing rapid demand growth in all segments of the energy sector for years. Recent forecasts indicate that the growth trend of 6 to 8% per year will prevail in the energy sector in the following years. The primary energy consumption, which reached around 92 million tons of oil equivalent in 2006, is expected to increase to 126 million tons of oil equivalent in 2010 and to 222 million in 2020. Our main energy source remains to be oil, with a share of 36%, followed by gas with 28%, coal with 25%, and hydro and other renewables with 11%. Our main goal in the field of energy is to acquire energy sources in a timely, reliable, cost-effective, environmentally sound, and high-quality basis so as to meet the country's development needs. The limits of Turkey's domestic energy sources in light of its growing energy demand have resulted in dependency on energy imports, primarily oil and gas. At present, around 30% of the total energy demand is being met by domestic resources, while the rest is being satisfied from a diversified portfolio of imports. If we look to Turkey's gas imports, for instance, we could see that Turkey depends for more than 60% on Russian gas, for about 20% on Iranian gas, and for 14% on Algerian LNG. And with respect to oil, Turkey depends for about 36% on Iran, around 30% on Russia, 15% on Libya, another 15% on Saudi Arabia, and only for about 3% on Iraq. Consequently, use of domestic sources to the extent possible and simultaneous diversification of supplies constitute the prime pillars of our energy policy. We believe that in meeting our growing energy demand, renewable energy sources will become an important alternative to our consumption of fossil fuels. Accordingly, the law on the use of renewable energy resources for the purpose of generating electrical energy has entered into force in 2005. The purpose of this law is to expand the use of renewable energy sources to generate electricity, to decrease dependency on foreign energy sources, to further contribute to energy diversification, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to reuse waste products, to protect the environment, and to develop the related manufacturing industries for realizing these objectives. The adoption of the law of geothermal resources and spring waters is yet another step that has been taken to this end. Turkey has also decided to embark upon a nuclear energy program. We consider nuclear energy to be one of the main components of our strategy in addressing the rise in energy demand and vision reducing dependency on imported fossil fuels through the sequential commissioning of nuclear power into the Turkish electricity grid. However, as the nuclear represents a new field for Turkey, for the right steps to be taken at the right time, emphasis is put on analyzing and scrutinizing the issue from all its relevant aspects. The law on construction and operation of nuclear power plants and energy sale has been adopted by the Turkish Grand National Assembly on the 21st of November last year. Furthermore, the discussions with regard to the nuclear law, as well as to other related draft regulations, will be taken up at the Turkish Grand National Assembly during 2008. Moreover, Turkey is also making efforts to increase its energy efficiency in order to realize its energy conservation potential and to fulfill its commitments arising from international agreements. With the belief that a more efficient and rational functioning of the energy sector will promote the competitiveness of the national economy substantial progress has been achieved in restructuring and liberalizing the energy market. In this respect, harmonizing the legal and regulatory framework with that of the EU has been one of our priorities. The restructuring of the energy sector is based on the following laws which conform with relevant EU acquis: the electricity market law, the natural gas market law, the petroleum market law, and the liquefied petroleum gas market law. The objective of this new legislation is to form a financially sound, stable, and transparent energy market with an independent regulator and supervising body, ensuring under competitive conditions the supply and good quality, cheap, environment-friendly, and uninterrupted flow of energy to consumers. The laws cover the import, transmission, distribution, storage, marketing, trade, and export of electricity, natural gas, LPG, oil, and the rights and obligation of all real and legal persons operating within the framework of these laws. Another important development within the framework of the liberalization process has been the establishment in 2001 of the Energy Market Regulatory Authority as an independent authority for electricity, gas, LPG, and petroleum markets. Moreover, being a candidate to become a full member of the European Union, the screening of Turkey's energy legislation against the energy acquis has been completed. Our expectation is to have the energy chapter opened for negotiations as soon as possible. Supply disruptions experienced during the last few years have clearly demonstrated the fragile nature of the energy transit chain. Nowadays, the issue of energy supply security has become a concept associated with foreign policy, national security, economic prosperity, and global stability. Therefore, cooperation between the regional governments of producing, transiting, and consuming countries is the key to maintain and sustain the energy security globally. The dialogue among these groups of countries will not only help to develop new economic relations, but also signals an opportunity to reach a common understanding in terms of energy supply security issues. At a global level, the IEA energy projections to 2030 depict a future in which fossil fuels continue to dominate the energy mix. Energy trade will expand rapidly. In particular, the major oil and gas consuming regions will see their imports grow substantially, and demand for natural gas will rise more so strongly than for any other fossil fuel. Given this energy demand outlook, and taking into consideration Turkey's unique geographical location, whereby 3/4 of the proven oil and gas reserves of the world lie in its neighborhood, it should come as no surprise to see Turkey emerging with an important role in energy diplomacy. When we talked about Turkey's energy policy before the 1990s, discussions then were mostly confined to Iraq-Turkey oil pipeline and Russian gas coming from the Western pipeline. Those sources were not sufficient as far as Turkey's potential and scale were concerned. The ensuing period is the history of the emerging role of Turkey as an energy corridor and terminal, particularly with respect to the potential of the Caspian and Middle Eastern regions. Turkey has undertaken with its partners world-scale energy projects, and throughout this period, its energy strategy has been shaped in the spirit of cooperation. For over a decade, Turkey has been promoting the East-West and more recently the North-South energy corridors. In the framework of the East-West energy corridor, Turkey has been successfully completed with its partners 2 major projects which are also of significant importance for European and world markets. The Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline, which carries the Azeri crude from the offshore field Azeri-Çırak-Güneşli, is in operation since May 2006, and this pipeline once was called Pipe 3. The BTC pipeline, which is in operation since May 2006, has transported till present time more than 300 million barrels of oil to date. The aim is to increase the current nominal 1 million barrel per day of the BTC pipeline to 1.2 million barrels, and at a later stage to 1.6 million barrels per day. In June 2006, Kazakhstan has officially joined the BTC pipeline with a commitment of 10 million tons of oil per year. A host government agreement to that effect was signed on that day in Almaty by the presidents of Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Under the agreement, Kazakh crude oil will be shipped to Baku across the Caspian Sea and then pumped through the BTC pipeline to Ceyhan. The other dimension of the East-West Energy Corridor, the Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum natural gas pipeline, as I said, is the second element of the East-West Energy Corridor. We believe that the Stage 2 production from the Shah Deniz field should be allocated for deliveries to Europe. Moreover, we consider the BTE as the first leg of the Trans-Caspian natural gas pipeline. In other words, Eastern originated gas, such as Turkmen, Kazakh, and Uzbek gas, is essential to complete the East-West Energy Corridor. At this point, I would also like to emphasize that Turkey, through its national oil company, TPAO, has participated in many upstream and midstream projects in the Caspian region. Turkey's total investment in this region has already well exceeded $3 billion and is expected to increase. Meanwhile, we have also been working on the interconnection of the Turkish and European natural gas grids. In this framework, I am glad to say that Turkey-Greece interconnector, which constitutes the first leg of the Turkey-Greece-Italy natural gas pipeline, has become operational on 18 November 2007. The Italy connection will form the second phase of the South European gas grid. An intergovernmental agreement was signed in Rome on 26th of July 2007 by Turkey, Greece, and Italy. This agreement sets out the main principles of gas transit through the respective territories of the countries. The Greece-Italy connection, named also the Poseidon pipeline, is estimated to be completed by 2012, with ultimate capacity of 12 BCM per year in the plateau period. With the realization of the Turkey-Greece part of the project, a concrete milestone has been reached in our aspiration to become the fourth artery of the EU for natural gas in the years to come. Work is also underway for the realization of the Nabucco project, which envisages the transportation of natural gas via Turkey through Bulgaria and Hungary and ending up in Austria. And the project is considered by the EU as one of the priority projects. Construction of the pipeline is due to start in 2009, and the pipeline is planned to be operational by 2012, with a capacity of 21 BCM. In this respect, Turkey welcomed the appointment of the former Dutch Prime Minister, Mr. Van Aartsen, as the EU Commission coordinator for the Nabucco project. We hope that his activities will give an impetus to the project. As a matter of fact, Mr. Van Aartsen was in Ankara last week on the 14th and 15th of February. He was received by our Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. And I believe that these high-level meetings attest to the economic, commercial, and strategic importance given by Turkey also to the Nabucco project. A crucial development with regard to this project was the confirmation on the 5th of February in Vienna of the participation of the German company RWE as the sixth partner to the project. We believe that it is high time for the partners and the EU to concentrate on this project and, among other things, work also together in securing the necessary supplies. We are also working simultaneously on the construction and operation of the Arab natural gas pipeline, which will carry Egyptian gas to Turkey via Jordan and Syria. Its completion is scheduled for 2009. And Turkey is also interested in the development of Iraqi natural gas reserves. Iraqi natural gas could easily be connected to the Turkish national grid through a pipeline to be constructed parallel to the existing Kirkuk-Ceyhan oil pipeline using the right-of-way of the latter. Within this framework, a memorandum of understanding was signed between Turkey and Iraq on the 7th August of 2007 in Ankara in order to supply Iraqi natural gas to Turkey and via Turkey to Europe. As I have already stated, in addition to the East-West energy corridor, Turkey also attaches great importance to the North-South axis. For instance, work has started on the Samsun-Ceyhan bypass oil pipeline, the extension of the Blue Stream gas pipeline to Ceyhan, and hence to Ashkelon with the view to supplying Israel with Russian natural gas is under consideration. While elaborating bypass projects, we take into account the heavy tanker traffic in the Turkish Straits, which is a serious source of concern for us. To be more specific, while around 60 million tons of hazardous cargo was transported through the Turkish Straits in 1996, this number reached 143. Russian oil. In view of the heavy tanker traffic as well as the physical characteristics and peculiarities of the Turkish Straits, collision and as a result an explosion in the Turkish Straits would not only endanger the lives of thousands of people but also cause irreparable damage to the environment. And these are two collisions. One happened in 79 and the other one in 94. So such a disaster would mean interruption of oil flow also to the world markets. It is needless to say that the Turkish Straits have reached a saturation point as a transport route for crude oil and other hazardous cargo. The solution lies in the use of alternative oil export options that bypass the straits. One of them has been the BTC pipeline that I have mentioned earlier. And among the bypass options under development, we consider Samsun-Ceyhan as an economically viable as well as environmentally sustainable project. The Turkish Çalık Enerji and Eni of Italy have signed a contract for partnership for the realization of the project, and the Indian Oil Corporation Limited is expected to join the consortium in a short while. Taking into account the capacities of the BTC pipeline, 50 million tons of oil per year initial capacity, which is aiming at 70 million tons of oil per year, the Iraqi-Turkish oil pipeline of 70 million tons of oil per year, and the Samsun-Ceyhan bypass pipeline, which is under development and which is aiming for 55 million tons of oil per year, as well as the oil transported through the Turkish Straits. It is expected that 6 to 7% of global oil supply will transit Turkey in the future. Moreover, with the construction of an oil refinery and LNG terminal, Ceyhan is expected to become, Ceyhan is on the Mediterranean coast in Turkey, is expected to become the largest oil outlet in the Eastern Mediterranean. The projects that I have mentioned reflect the strategic role Turkey is aiming to assume in the field of energy, become an energy terminal and a trade route for supplies for the energy-producing regions to energy-consuming markets, and thus play an important role for Europe's and to a lesser degree for Asia's energy supply security. I would like to conclude my intervention by emphasizing that Turkey's energy strategy is in line with the objective of the European Union to diversify both its energy sources and supply routes. In other words, Turkey, which pursues the aim to diversify its own energy supplies, is simultaneously contributing to projects of importance to the European energy security by making efforts working to become a reliable alternative transit country for Europe, through which energy would be transported in a sustainable and secure manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Beres. We will follow the model that was set yesterday and do our questions at the end of our session. And I'd like to invite Professor Naimski to make his comments.
Thank you. It's a privilege, my privilege, that I can once again be here and talk about the issue which is probably one of the most important for us, and actually in particular for people dealing with the security, foreign relations, foreign policy of our countries. Let me first make a few general remarks, and then I try to show you a brief geostrategic picture of the issue from let's say, Polish perspective. Three essential issues may shape the future of the world energy, and they are particularly important for 40 million people country that is Poland. These are diversification, solidarity, and cooperation. Diversification, if completed as scheduled, with the main projects that are presently undertaken by Poland, LNG terminal, Baltic Pipe gas pipeline, Odessa-Brody Płock pipeline, will assure independence from Russian resources and on which we rely so heavily today. Consequently, Poland will be able to strengthen its political independence by achieving security of energy supplies. Equally, it will allow the country to pursue the long-term strategy focusing on nuclear energy and new coal technologies. Poland, with the large reserves of coal, needs a well-thought-out policy in order to effectively use those resources. On one hand, this policy has to take into account the potentially burdensome repercussions related to the restrictions on carbon dioxide emissions. On the other, it has to lay the foundation for the potential value of the advanced coal technologies to be effectively developed. Diversification, understood as an ability to provide energy from new sources, can reach far beyond the search of new sources of oil and gas supplies. Those who will possess new groundbreaking technologies will gain an immediate advantage. Poland is ready and willing to cooperate in the field of R&D so that diversification does not need to be limited only to current energy sources, and we are open to ventures through which we could develop new ideas, hydrogen, similar other new technologies, improve the technologies used today, clean coal technologies, IGCC, better nuclear reactors, biotechnologies, etc. I believe that the discussion about new energy sources must be set in the framework that reaches out into unexplored grounds yet. In the future, different technological factors will inevitably come to the fore. It is therefore crucial that we invest in the R&D and commit to cooperation in this field. As part of that effort, it might at some point be worth considering whether achieving energy security defined narrowly as undisrupted access to hydrocarbons, is not an example of the old way of thinking or the dead-end road altogether. Must new energy sources be hydrocarbons related, and where is the place for a new vision on energy? Discussion of those matters would certainly be an inspiration. Solidarity. In Poland, this tradition of solidarity is still alive. We encourage countries of the European Union as well as our Atlantic partners to act accordingly to that principle in the field of energy. We are convinced that a common position based on a collective approach of national governments to energy security issues is possible. In 2005, in the aftermath of the situation caused by the disruption of gas supplies from Russia via Ukraine to Europe, the Polish government responded in a constructive manner, proposing an intergovernmental agreement, the European Energy Security Treaty, that would provide assistance to the country whose energy security is in danger. The proposal was by no means contradictory to or infringing on the commitments within the EU or NATO. It offered a flexible mechanism to deal with possible crises in the future. The agreement proposal contained a basic clause elaborating on mutual energy security guarantees, under which the parties would be committed to grant each other mutual assistance in the event of a threat to their energy supplies from natural or political causes. The treaty commitments were founded on the clause whereby the parties agreed that a threat to the energy security of one of them will be considered a threat to the energy security of all of them. Moreover, the EEST contained a proposal to build the infrastructure needed to bring real, immediate, and significant assistance to the endangered country. The necessary infrastructure was to be used upon a collective decision and financed from a small budget controlled by the countries signing the agreement. Those sleeping pipelines would only be used at the time of emergency, providing the so needed security guarantee in face of a crisis situation and not undermining the regular market mechanisms. We still believe in the possibility of establishing solidarity crisis management mechanism in the area of energy security, even though the EU countries seem to prefer to act on their own. To make the project feasible, the interest of all countries should be taken into account by the major European players. The Polish government has been persistent in its efforts to persuade the European partners, and its position seems to be met with more understanding than would once be the case. Thus, elements of the original proposal have found their way into recent European documents. In the world where disrupting the flow of supplies may be as effective as sending tanks and aircrafts, solidarity in the field of energy should be the core principle of international relations within the transatlantic community. When energy exporting countries use their natural resources to obtain political goals, when access to energy resources becomes more crucial than ever before, there are reasons for concern. While the official strategy of the Russian Federation provides for the use of energy resources to obtain political goals, the biggest European countries remain silent, and the concern grows bigger. The Nord Stream gas pipeline is a vivid example of that tendency, which justifies our concerns. A pipeline that is by far more expensive than a land alternative pipeline between Russia and Germany via the territories of the EU countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, it should be considered as the political rather than economic activity. The German-Russian project is to serve political, mainly Russian reasons. Cooperation. Poland is looking for allies in the field of energy security not only to provide mutual assistance at the time of a crisis. It's equally open to cooperation in technology development and upstream activities. Both the United States and the European Union are net importers of oil and natural gas. Both show rising demand for these energy carriers. Taking into account that energy supply has become an issue of the utmost importance for national security of a vast majority of countries, I hold the view that international cooperation in places where energy carriers are extracted and sold to world markets is necessary. Without infringing on the economic freedom of private enterprises, American oil companies can afford to let smaller European companies cooperate with them in the production of crude oil and natural gas. This would improve energy security of Europe, while at the same time the cooperation of Europeans in joint projects has the potential of making more accessible the markets in those countries where anti-American sentiments might prevail. However, the hydrocarbons will stay the crucial energy carriers for foreseeable future, despite our efforts to diversify the energy sources, what I mentioned at the beginning. I would like to focus for a moment on geography of oil and gas producers. In case of oil, we can identify one major center in Persian Gulf, 38% of global oil supply, 61% of proved reserves, and several minor centers like Central Asia with Russia, 15% supply, 11% reserves, and Asia Pacific, 10% supply, 4% reserves, Africa, 12% supply, 10% reserves, South America, 9% supply, 9% reserves, and North America, 16% supply, 5% reserves. In case of natural gas, we can point out two major centers, namely Middle East, 41% of global proved reserves, and Russia, 26% reserves. The list of the 10 biggest natural gas suppliers differs a little bit and looks as follows: Russia, US, Canada, Iran, Norway, Algeria, United Kingdom, which is going to be seized, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia. It's easy to notice that majority of oil and natural gas reserves are located in unstable countries. The region, which is still clogged by leftovers of Russian dominance in Central Asia. The situation improves as new routes of transportation are either built, being built, or planned. The most spectacular project from this area is certainly existing already, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan crude oil pipeline. Another project which is currently being developed is a pipeline intended to connect the gas systems of Turkey, Greece, and Italy, so-called Poseidon project. It is the first step to open the south path for delivering Caspian natural gas to Europe, Azerbaijani natural gas from Shah Deniz. It has already reached the first phase. The Nabucco project is probably the most known gas pipeline project in Central Europe and the Balkans, and even in Brussels. If not stopped by Balkan countries switching for the new Russian PET, the South Stream pipeline, it could be attractive for Poland as a viable alternative only if it is supplied by other than Russian gas. Alternative transport corridors from the Caspian region are crucial to increase European energy security. We should not forget that the Middle East is still a very unstable part of the world. Iraq is still in turmoil. Iran is under sanctions and isolated. Several other countries recovering from domestic and international conflicts. The energy policy is a part of this security policy, and it should be considered with an adequate approach. It touches the future of existing alliances as well. We should make an effort to make the transatlantic partnership possible in the field of energy, and it should be naturally related to the tradition of cooperation in other fields among EU member states as well. I haven't touched many important issues: energy charter versus new PCA with Russia, third energy package prepared by the EU Commission, problem of the necessary tools for preventing unwanted investment in the crucial also energy sectors, and many others. However, for Poland, the most important issue in a short-term perspective is to diversify sources of energy supplies, finding understanding, solidarity, and if possible, cooperation among our friends in Europe and America. And this is, after this short introduction, I would like to show you a few maps. Okay, it's just the reminder. Okay. It's just the reminding, It's a change. I found it interesting. It's a change between the situation in 1960 and nowadays in terms of who is the owner of the resources. And it changed really because in 1960s, most of the reserves were controlled by the international companies. And today, most of the reserves is controlled by national oil and gas companies. So it was very much nationalized. Here we have a I mean, the major routes for import or sources of import of the gas to Europe, it's nothing new. We know it's Russia, Norway, and Algeria, or basically, you know, in a wider sense, North Africa. Hopefully, Norway will stay a stable place, stable source for European demand. Here we have a map of Europe with the circles showing the extension of Gazprom activity as the gas supplier. And it's, you know, it's obvious that and in a sense very much understood that starting from the east, where Gazprom is responsible for 100% of supplies, means Baltic Republic, Belarus, actually Ukraine, and also Poland and Hungary and Bulgaria and so on. It changes with on the way toward the west. The Germany, France, and Italy are two big European countries which really succeeded in a real diversification of supplies. Mainly because of two reasons: geographical position and smart policy. Sorry. Okay. Here there are existing and planned route for Russian gas transportation toward the Europe. I mean, these dotted or lines or pink lines are different from those really red. Red are in the possession of existing and in the possession of the Gazprom. In Ukraine, for example, it's not direct, it's indirect, and the Russians are fighting for the full control. On the north, we have this Nord Stream project, and connected with the so-called Opal gas pipeline coming from east northern Germany down south to Czech Republic, and then joining the picture on the south. I don't have, okay, we have two on this picture, on this map, we have two pipelines crossing the Black Sea. One is, three. One is existing one. It's a first pipeline of the Blue Stream project. Russians and Italians, they plan to extend it, in the future to construct second line. And the third one is a new, mentioned before by me also, South Stream project, the gas pipeline coming directly from Russia to Bulgaria and entering Balkans and Europe. Here is something, which is probably, something important to see where Russians are in fulfilling their direction towards the control over the downstream in Europe. They are not so far for the moment, because there are a lot of talks about that, discussions, and they make a lot of efforts to acquire, certain companies like Centrica, for example, in Great Britain, but they did not succeed. But one has to remember that this is the goal for Russian companies. Okay, here we have a map of Poland. Poland, in this sense, direct Russian Gazprom or other Russian companies' activity is kind of unique place in Europe because we don't have them. It's, you know, it's surrounded by different kinds of Russian activity, but inside Poland, okay, we have Yamal, first Yamal pipeline, and I'll show it in the next, one of the next slides. We have some gas stations bought by Lukoil, and nothing more. But we are aware that we are under pressure. There are, you know, 3 places with big chemical factories in Poland. One is close to Szczecin, is Police, and the other one is Kędzierzyn-Koźle, is close to Thousand border, Czech Republic border, and the third one is in Puławy, which is close to Ukrainian border. And there are some efforts from the Russian-supported small, I mean, in a formal sense, companies to enter the market and to replace Polish POGC in supplies for these chemical factories. All right, here I would like to show you, more, this is what I called this geostrategic, picture. There are certain rings of pipelines networks. The first one, it's a big one. It's projected, in a sense, I mean, partly already constructed, partly projected, a big ring coming from Primorsk under the Baltic Sea, it's a Nord Stream, and then Opel joining the big pipeline which exists and crosses Slovakia and Czech Republic and enters Germany. And then goes to Baumgarten. It's only worth to mention that 2 weeks ago, I guess, or 3 weeks ago, Gazprom acquired 50% of Baumgarten hub. And then, with the South Stream project, from Baumgarten to Bulgaria, back to Russia. So it forms the ring where I mean, big Eastern European hub for gas. And the hub will be totally dependent on Russia, on Russian suppliers, on Russian transmission companies, and so on. And I tried to show at this picture the smaller, much smaller ring, which is connected with our Polish project for diversification. Because we think in Poland about cooperation, about constructing certain kind of gas hub on our scale and located in western part of Baltic Sea. This is why we are trying to build this Baltic pipe, small pipeline connecting Danish shore with Poland, and this LNG terminal in Świnoujście close to Szczecin. And having that, we would like to build this interconnector. Okay, this pipeline between Denmark and Poland is projected at the interconnector. And then, having completed these projects, we would like to join the German system, and already the German system is connected with Danish system. And this forms a kind of small gas hub, and we are interested in completing this project, and we are looking for cooperation in Denmark, Norway, Germany, Sweden for that project. Comparing this project only with, for example, Nord Stream project is minor thing. It's nothing important, because we are talking about importing, probably 5.5 billion cubic meters to Poland by LNG and pipeline at the first phase, and comparing with 55 billion cubic meters for which the Nord Stream is projected is 1/10. So something which is crucial for Poland is probably marginal for our big neighbors. Okay, on this slide is a diagram of our northern projects. It's a POGC, Polish Oil and Gas Company, acquired share at the field up there at the north of the Norwegian shelf. Actually, we bought this field from ExxonMobil, and we have a partner there in E.ON. And we joined Scanlet project, which is led by Gassco, Norwegian company. And once again, it consists of series of partners. And once again, E.ON is our partner. All right. Yeah, coming up. And Baltic Pipe, I mean, we are going to use this offshore new pipeline from Kørstad to Danish system, and then go through the Danish system and construct this small linkage interconnector between Denmark and Poland and build the LNG terminal, which might be extended in the second and third phase to more capacity. Okay, let's skip it. This is schedule for strategic projects, you know, and it shows, I mean, briefly, it shows that by 2010 we'll have, we should have Baltic Pipe end of 2010, beginning of 2011. We should have Baltic Pipe ready, and then we'll have LNG terminal ready for 2012, and we have Scanlet ready for 2012, 2013. So first will be Baltic Pipe interconnector, and then Scanlet. Okay, there are magazines there. And here is a map, you know, with planned, by the way, it's prepared by POGC. Some of these slides, I should mention it, some of these slides are prepared by POGC. It's for POGC strategy. Some comes from Center of Eastern Studies in Warsaw. Some are prepared by ourselves. Anyway, it's a compilation, but I think it shows what we need. Sorry? POGC is Polish Oil and Gas Company.
Which is the same like PGNiG.
It's the same. It's Polish, yeah. So this is, I mean, in this dashed arrows, we have here connections having capacity of interconnections for the future. So first will be Baltic Pipe, which is, you know, from the sea, then terminal, then probably we would like to have it terminal to Berlin interconnector, probably after 2012, and after 2012 interconnector with Czech system. And here is just a diagram showing what we would like to achieve. By the way, I should mention it here that in Poland we use probably 13% or 14%. I mean, the gas consists 13 or 14% of natural or primary energy sources, which is low. It's half of the European average. And we would like to keep it as it is. We are not going to rise the consumption of gas dramatically in Poland. We would like to have this, you know, transferred the situation from which we have now, which is that we have 2/3 of our consumption from imported from one direction, and this is eastern direction, to the second circle where 1/3 is from the east, 1/3 our own production, and 1/3 from north and south. Okay, here we have oil situation. In oil, it's once again the same pattern. You know, farther to the east, dependency on Russian supplies grows, and it reaches 100% already also in Poland. Here are oil pipelines, you know, coming to Europe from Russia. Here are Russian projects for expansion of the transportation routes. It's on the north. It's a project of pipeline from oil pipeline from Murmansk to the south, and is connected with probably exploration of Barents Sea reserves or exportation of, because Murmansk is the terminal, export terminal as well. KTK, it's a project for second line of the pipeline extracting Caspian oil to the Black Sea. Burgas Alexandroupolis, it's a project with Russian presence between Bulgaria and Greece. All right, just to skip it. Okay, this one, it shows what could be done, what would happen if the Druzhba pipeline is interrupted. So in such a case, probably the most of the Russian or Eastern export of oil would go through Primorsk or through Ventspils in Latvia, omitting Poland. Actually, also today we have the situation when the German refineries in Eastern Germany, they are supplied from Gdańsk rather than from Druzhba pipeline because of some commercial problems between German refineries and traders. Okay, here we have pipeline Odessa-Wody-Płock-Gdańsk, as we call it. So it's a Caspian crude oil corridor to Europe. It's shown on this map how it goes. I can tell that the project which most of us considered very difficult to be completed, now I would say that I would give probably 60% for this project, that it will be in reality finished probably by 2012, not 2011, 2012. Probably you did notice that recently, very recently, Kazmunaigaz bought another 50% of Batumi terminal in Georgia. They bought first 50% some time ago, and now they are the owner of the whole terminal. And Kazmunaigaz, I mean Kazakhs, they are not direct partners in this project, but they are thinking about transferring some of the crude for the Black Sea by 2011-2012. And having this Kazakh's oil on the Black Sea, it will create kind of a Black Sea oil market for oil. And the companies involved in this project, transportation project, could buy the oil, Kazakhs or Azeris, or probably even Russian, why not, oil on the Black Sea and divert it from the Turkish Strait up to the north. A certain period of transition in all those countries, you know, it depends, but 2/3 or even up to 75% of the shares belongs equally to German E.ON or Gazprom. So the markets, the companies of those small countries have been taken by those giants. And this is why I did mention that the strategy I am working on is for the Poland, which is 40 million people country, not 4 million people country. And I wouldn't like to end up with such a picture for Poland. Thank you.
But you know also that E.ON is shareholder for 5% by Gazprom, but you have no interest in Gazprom.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a really big honor and pleasure to speak today at Columbia University. My speech will be about, is the EU policy in energy security compatible with national strategies? At the very beginning, when I received the invitation for the conference and the topic, I was like, yeah, wow, that's a very good topic to talk about. Later on, I realized how, firstly, how big is the topic, and secondly, how hard it is to present it not in a paper, not in a working paper, not in a book, but on the PowerPoint presentation. So I'll do my best, and I guess that after that, maybe you'll have some questions. The plan of the presentation. Firstly, I would like to say what means the EU policy in energy security, and then define how European Union sees the energy security, why it is all about oil and gas, why is it important in the view of European institutions, what is the difference, the perceived difference between oil and gas markets, the past and present concept of energy security, and then why the action is proposed on the community level, again what it means but from a bit different angle, the history of European Union legislation, and main features of the policy in energy security. And then at the very, very end, I would like to show you 2 slides showing the brief difference between old and new member states of European Union. So, firstly, I will start, as I said, with what does it mean, the European Union policy in energy security. And the topic of the subject, the subject of this presentation, how it's compatible with the national strategies. The reason why I said it's very hard to talk about this is firstly because there is nothing like one European Union policy in energy security. There are different legislations which are dealing with this issue, but there is no just one coherent policy in energy security. And secondly, the reason why it's hard to talk about this is how it's compatible with national strategies. There are 27 national strategies, or 26 after your presentation yesterday. But generally, having 27 national strategies, it's hard to say, or it would be even hard for one European energy security policy, if it would exist, to be compatible with all of them. I'll do my best to show that it is somehow possible to analyze it in this way. So, for the purpose of this presentation, I defined EU policy in energy security as any legal act in the form of directive or regulation which has in its scope any measure targeted into the security of energy supplies. I made just one exception for the proposal for a directive from the year 2002. This was a proposal made by European Commission concerning the alignment of measures with regard to security of supply for petroleum products. This directive was not approved yet. We are in 2008, so it's like 6 years past. But I hope that after the presentation it will be clear why I also included this proposal within the presentation. Just briefly, I don't know how familiar you are with European Union institutions, but mainly when we talk about European Union institutions, we have three institutions in mind. European Commission, which is, you can somehow say, executive body, preparing also the legislation. European Council, which is gathering of the ministers and the representatives of the governments of member states, and the European Parliament. In the past, the directives, the first directives which I will present, they were taken just by the European Council, and then the amount of the areas where there is a co-decision between European Parliament, chosen directly by the citizens of Europe, and European Council, so representatives of governments, increased, and the latter directives were taken together. So how European Commission defines the energy security, and how it's also agreed in the papers agreed later by Council, is the constant physical availability of energy products on the market at the price which is affordable for all consumers, whether private or industrial. And this, I think, also taking into account the previous presentations, I think is quite accurate definition. Why it is all about oil and gas? I think that just from the energy security perspective, even if we talk about directive on the production of electricity from renewable sources, or the directive on energy savings in buildings, or the so-called biofuels package, I mean, if you look just from the energy security perspective, it is all about oil and gas, because European Union has no scope for influencing oil and gas supply conditions. And as you can also observe from these presentations, but from any analysis from International Energy Agency or any other body, the European indigenous production and the European indigenous sources decreased substantially in the last 50 years. And this situation, also the change in the ownership of the oil and gas fields worldwide, I mean the shift from multinationals and up to NOCs, to national oil companies, this decreased further the European Union influence on the oil and gas supply conditions. So this lack of influence is caused firstly by structural weakness of our energy supplies, because as I said, the indigenous production is going down, and secondly by geopolitical, economic and social vulnerability regarding the energy supplies. So when I'm saying that in European Commission view or any other body, I'm basing on just on the formal documents of the European Commission. Why is it important? First, the oil. The dependence on external supplies, as you can see, is currently 75% when we talk about European Union, and is likely to exceed 85% by 2020. The oil market is very inflexible in the short term. I mean, even with the rising prices, there is not so much maneuver that we have regarding the demand. So the demand will not adjust in a very short term, and also supply in a very short term, the overcapacity, which was, for example, a decade ago in the Middle East, decreased. A rise of $10 per barrel is expected to increase the European Union's oil bill by 40 billion euros, and is also expected to bring the loss of at least 0.5% of GDP growth. And gas. Gas consumption in Europe rises by up to 2.5% per year. The market share in the European energy mix is expected to rise by 30% by 2020. And since, in fact, 13 years, the gas-fired power plants represent between 50 and 60% of all the new investments in the power generation, which means that as these are all long-term investments, and as you don't change the power plant every 5 years, will be more and more dependent on the gas. This is sensitive area also because gas is used mainly for three purposes: power generation, cogeneration, and heating of households. Two other reasons why gas is so important. Firstly, because the old member states market is expected to depend on imports. No, something is wrong here. Oh no, yeah, in gas by 25 to 30%, and enlarged market, which means the 27 member states market is expected to depend on imports of gas for 35 to 40%. What is the difference between oil and gas? I mean, it will be also shown later in the history of legislation. Oil was present on the on the European market since more than 100 years. And after the Second World War, it accounted for a very big percent of energy mix. While gas, 10 from 15 European Union countries until 1970 consumed less than 1 billion cubic meters. And in 1960, gas represented just 2% of European energy mix. So as you can see, gas in 60s, and in fact up to mid-70s, was not at all important fuel, and it was not at all important factor in the policy, and it was rightly perceived so, because it was in fact not existent, contrary to oil. In 1968, there was a first directive imposing an obligation on maintenance of minimum stocks of oil. And at that time, if someone, thank you, if someone can prevent me from restarting it, that would be great. Yeah. So by 1985, I'm sorry, gas accounted for 16% of the energy consumption. And the first proposal of a directive, which was in fact a proposal for common rules on the internal market of gas, was forwarded by Commission to the Council in 1992. As you can see, there is difference of 24 years. Yes, 24 years between first directive on oil and first directive of gas. Secondly, when we talk about oil, the maintenance of minimum stocks, etc., since the beginning of 60s, member states were involved directly in the energy security regarding the oil supplies. In the gas, it was not quite the same. Firstly, because the European market until now, and in fact maybe even still now, European natural gas market didn't exist. It was very fractured into national markets, while in the meantime the oil market globalized. And most of the gas companies were national companies operating just on the national territory. They were vertically integrated companies, so they were keeping everything from the production and or imports up to the delivery to the end consumer, including everything in between, storages, distribution network, transmission network, everything. So they had all the information necessary, all the infrastructure requirements, gas supply, demand side portfolio, and necessary instruments to conduct the planning of the infrastructure. This is why gas market in Europe was in some ways so stable, as those companies, apart from all the normal market activities, were also responsible for keeping in short, medium and long term the deliveries coming to the end consumer. And this is also what yesterday Minister Bartuszka said, that citizens expect this to be a right and not just normal commodity that you buy on the market. Secondly, almost all of those national companies were either private, I mean either partly, either fully, but partly means also, usually in 99% of cases it means majority, stately owned. So state didn't have to be directly involved in the energy security when we talk about gas, because it was owner of the gas companies, national gas companies, and this was one of the tools of pursuing its policy. In the oil market, as I said, it was globalized already for less decades, and therefore it was different, and state was directly either regulating, either acting to provide the security of supplies. Therefore, as I said, the discussion on gas was somehow following the solutions which were agreed at the beginning, I mean at the end of the 60s, regarding the oil supplies, and it is still following, in fact, which I will try to show later. At the same time, the perception of the importance and the character of security of oil and gas supplies was changing. At the very, very beginning, energy security, meaning, as definition which I showed at the very beginning, the constant, not interrupted supplies of the energy products to the market at affordable price, it was a goal by itself. And why I say that it changed? Because in most documents which you read right now, which are either proposals, either already taken decisions by the European institutions, energy security is one of the means which will enable the internal market to operate smoothly. But there is a methodological difference between saying that energy security is a goal by itself and saying that rightly functioning internal market is the goal by itself, and one of its tools necessary to fulfill it is energy security. These are two different things, and this perception led to some, which I call dualism of approach, because on one hand the internal market perspective, and on the other hand the sustainability of economic growth, which is reducing risk of physical disruption or economic risk. It is depending on which part of the European Commission is presenting the document. You can see that either energy security is just a tool to firstly to let the internal market operate, and secondly it will be anyway when we will have the full competition on the market, the energy security will be there. There is also a second point of view, which still is represented also by part of the Commission, that for the social cohesion, which is necessary for the internal market and other policies to function, we need to have, firstly, to avoid the physical disruptions, but also we need to avoid the economic risk. Economic risks are connected to the perceived possibility of having the physical disruption. If you look at the fluctuation of the prices on the oil market and then the gas prices, which are in Europe in most of the contracts, long-term contracts, they are directly connected to the oil price. You can see that the fluctuation of the price is not caused by actual shortages of supplies. It's rather connected to the information from the market and then expectations of the traders buying or going for long position or short because of the different signals. So why taking the action on the community level? Why this was decided? As you probably know, one of the basic rules governing the European Union is the rule of subsidiarity, which means that the action is taken on a community level only if it is not possible to pursue the same goal effectively on the national or local levels, which means we go higher only if something cannot be done in a lower level. Firstly, with the creation of internal energy market, which was a goal already discussed at the very end of 80s regarding the gas, there is a bigger interdependence between member states, between companies. Secondly, national companies are no longer responsible for energy security because, as I said, before when they were operating just in the fraction market, they were responsible for short, medium and long-term planning investment. Now they are operating and, on this market which starts to be competitive, and in this way, I would say 30 years ago, Gaz de France, having gas, firstly would be responsible to sell this gas to French citizens. On an internal European energy market, it is normal that it will sell it where the price will be higher, leaving, for example, French customers without gas and selling this to Great Britain or Germany, which is a normal thing in the competition. But that just means that at the same time, we take out the responsibility naturally from, we cannot leave this responsibility on companies anymore, and we give it to the member states, which are more independent, and to the community, and no longer limited to national territory, as I said. So, due to the globalization, plus the rise in the share of gas in the energy mix of Europe, action taken by one member state is it will have little or no impact. Consequently, as European Commission said, the objective of proposed action cannot be sufficiently achieved by member state, and therefore, because of the scale of effects, can be better achieved by the community. So, this is the second part, and there will be also a third part of some general features of the European Union policy, or as I said, legislation in the field of energy security. Generally, if you can take major features of this legislation, it's firstly that it's a set of general rules which should be governing the market, and just in some specific cases there are very direct measures. But usually it is goals set up by the Commission which and agreed then by the Council. And member states and industry have the flexibility to choose the tools in which they want to achieve these goals. So in other way, Commission sets up the goal, but the member states or the industry shape the market. The history of European, it will be, this part will be very brief, but the history of legislation, first in 1968 and then after 20 years it was repealed, the directive on the obligation of member states to maintain minimum stocks of crude oil and petroleum products. In 1973 it was also a directive, measures to mitigate the effects of difficulties in the supply of crude oil. That directive gave the Commission the power, while there is a shortage of the oil or petroleum product supplies, to set up goals of the reduction in consumption. Which, for example, the Commission could, in the event of crisis, say you have to reduce by 10% your consumption for next 2 months of oil products, and the member states would have the flexibility of tools. In 1972, there was, thank you, In 1972, there was a regulation which was a notification to Commission of imports of crude oil and natural gas. So member states will have to notify the Commission on regular basis and transparent basis on the imports. In 1977, it was the Council decision setting up a community target for reduction in the consumption of primary sources in the event of difficulties. Then there was a Council recommendation, which is not the same as regulations directive because it doesn't have the same binding legal power on the methods of forming natural gas prices and tariffs. And then 1994, the directive setting up the way in which permissions for exploration and production of carbohydrates are given in European Union. Then 1996, common rules for internal markets in electricity and natural gas. And then 2002, I'll come back to that, the proposal of a directive which was not taken. 2004, the directive on security of gas supplies. And this is the directive, I think, one of the most important acts. And then in 2006, basing on the directive from 2004, there was European Commission decision on creation of the gas coordination group. So, what are the main features of this policy? Firstly, I think that from the beginning, the perceived importance of securing the supplies, the solidarity between member states, which was already in 1968, solidarity understood in the following way, that if there is a disruption of supplies to community or to one member state, the community should either take an action, either the Commission had the power to consider an action, even if the supplies were interrupted just to one of the member states. And this is regarding the oil supplies. And the creation of, then it was called Common Energy Policy. And in the 70s, if you look at the directives, it is said that it is one of the goals of community to create a common energy policy, which then I think for, the whole 90s, looking at the European documents, was somehow forgotten. Main features. Firstly, flexibility. So as I said, reduction of consumption, for example, but member states shape their energy markets, which means setting up the goals, but the tools in the hands of member states. And secondly, it's reiterated. Second, solidarity. Cost sharing between member states, which was introduced in 1977 regarding the oil market. Disruption of one more member states and European Commission acting on its own or on the request of member states. Coordination action. And this comes from the proposal of the directive. Due to the inefficiency of the single member states action, proposal of coordinated release of the stocks. This is the difference between European Union and United States of America. Even if we have the obliging minimum stocks of oil, then there is no coordinated mechanism or releasing them. And this system was from the beginning set up in order to mitigate the effects of the physical disruption. While in the United States, firstly, the stocks are visible, are credible, are in some way transparent, are governed by the governmental agency, I mean, are managed by the governmental agency, and there is a possibility of raising the stocks during the risk even of physical disruption. Okay, transparency and free market mechanism. Firstly, prices should reflect true costs and changes in competitive position of the fuel. Secondly, consumers can make only valid choice with the adequate degree of transparency, and the prohibition of the discrimination between member states and companies. And this prohibition of discrimination between member states and companies regards the European Union companies. So it's like different approach between EU and the third countries. And taking into account those three features, I mean flexibility, solidarity, and transparency and free market mechanism. In this respect, if I would have to answer the question, is the EU, let's call it policy for energy security, compatible with national strategies, I would say yes. Because each member state, I mean each country becoming a member state of European Union has to sign to some rules which are general and unequally governing European Union. And the basis, I mean, the solidarity, the transparency, free market mechanism, these are the rules which are general and they are basis of European Union in some way. So as those policies, in this respect, you could say, yes, this is compatible with any national strategy because it's a member state. The other features is clear differentiation between EU and third countries. And just to make a picture maybe less pink, there are some specific measures, as I said. One of them is the major supply disruption mechanism, which means that when there is a major supply disruption, shall mean a situation where the community would risk to lose more than 20% of its gas supply from third country. This mechanism was designed before the enlargement of the European Union. It was designed in the European Union of 15 members and not in the European Union of 27 members. Why does it matter and why I mentioned this mechanism? If you look at the enlargement in European Union was in 2004. So in 2004, 10 new member states joined, right? If you look at the old 15 members gas consumption structure in 2004, this graph shows each country what percentage of the European gas consumption accounts for each country. And as you remember, the goal was 20%. I mean, if the 20% of its gas supplies from third country are cut off, then the action on community level can be taken. If you look, Germany accounted for 22%, United Kingdom for 22%, Italy for 17%, France for almost 10%, Netherlands for 11%, Spain for almost 6%, Belgium for 4%. You can see that having 15 members, it was not so hard to run off the community mechanism, because it was enough that either the big country, either the medium consumer and some small consumer would be cut off from the supplies, would have the community mechanism. And now the 27 member states. You have United Kingdom, also in just 1 year later, so after the enlargement. United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, France, Netherlands, and then you have the list of all the new member states. And I can tell you that summing up 12 new member states, so everything from Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, if you add up all our consumptions, this doesn't constitute 20% of the European gas consumption. What it means? That means that even if 100% of our gas import would be cut off to all 12 member states, it would still not be enough to take the action on the community level, because the major supply disruption mechanism was set up according to the old member states' consumption. And it was rightly, at that point it was rightly done so. The problem is it was not amended. And this is why I said that when we talk about general rules and when we talk about compatibility between EU policy and national strategies, on a general level, on the level of the rules, of the level of the values, it is compatible because we all share some values. But when we get down to the specific measures, Unfortunately, those measures were set up not for the EU of 27. And I think this is pretty scaring situation when you think that 12 member states can be cut off. Obviously, we don't account for a big percent of European consumption. But on the other hand, I mean, doesn't matter for Poland, for Czech Republic, for Hungary, or for Lithuania or Bulgaria, having no supplies, it's, I think, the same or even bigger problem than, you know, for France having, no, you know, lacking like 20% of supplies. The fact that we don't consume a lot because we have low penetration of the market doesn't mean it's not a problem for us, but we don't have even altogether a chance for running a community action, and we constitute for almost half of the EU member states. So what is missing? I mean, in my opinion, firstly, this is still a very inward-oriented perspective. I mean, the measures are not proactive. We talk about mechanisms which are good. I'm not neglecting them. But we are talking about everything what is inside and just mitigating the physical disruption. We are not talking about proactive actions like firstly the external energy policy, secondly diversification of source of supply. This is still not perceived, and it was, I think, clear on the previous presentation when you see how the markets are diversified. I mean, the more west you go, the more diversified it is. The more east you go, the worse it gets. So because the old member states had the same troubles that we have 30 years ago and dealt with them in the same way that, in fact, we are trying to do. They forgot in some way how it was 30 years ago. We have just this delay due to different historical and structural reasons. But because of that, the need for diversification of source supply, which is not only a question of energy security, it's also a question of internal market functioning and the competition and free market rules. Because if you don't have players, you don't have competition. This is not reflected in the European policy, and in this respect, it is the second point where I would say that this is not compatible with national strategies. Most of Central and Eastern European countries, both in the form and in the content, when you look at the energy strategies, one of the top priorities is the diversification of source supply. Then if you look at the European policy, when you look at the European policy and the emphasis on energy security, 2006, in January, there was the Russian-Ukrainian dispute, and the Austrian presidency paper, which was new energy policy for Europe, it in fact started the whole discussion. It was emphasizing the need for energy security, emphasizing the need for diversification of supply sources and supply routes. And we came, just in 2 years, to the emphasis of fighting the climate change. And I will just quote Mr. Bartuszka from yesterday, that there is new paradigm which is environmental impact is paramount for society and more important than energy security. And I think in this respect, this is not compatible with strategies of, almost all new member states. And I would like to thank you for your attention, and thank you.
Very good. So now we have time for questions or comments. I open the floor. Please identify yourself and direct your question to a particular person.
It's possible to have a view back to the slides of Piotr. Yeah? First, I want to mention before I come to Piotr's slides, I agree with all aspects you mentioned from the point of understanding of Turkey. From my personal point of understanding and also from the German point of understanding, Turkey will have in future a main position as an energy hub, maybe in the not European, in the worldwide community. And this is one of the main reasons, from my personal point of understanding, why it is absolutely necessary, and there is no alternative, that Turkey should become a member of the European Union as soon as possible. This is not a cultural problem, this is a strategic problem and a strategic challenge. And there we have to discuss in Europe about that. If you are talking about a worldwide security system, also based on a secure energy position, then there's no alternative.
I fully agree.
Huh?
I fully agree.
No, I want to and everything you're telling is absolutely okay. One.
Which one you would like?
Yes. If you look,
That one?
yeah.
Okay.
If you look to this slide, I think there is one point missing. This is a development of the production markets. In 3 or 4 years, for example, Great Britain has no own gas. The British gas fields in the North Sea are finished. And there's such a rapid development that also the British were very surprised about this situation. What does it mean? This means that in Europe, the supply situation changed completely. On the one hand, we have the situation, we have more gas in heating situations, we have more gas in chemical industries, and also we will have more gas as for climate aspects in the electricity power production. And now Europe missed the British gas. That's the alternative. Is there a European alternative or a worldwide alternative? And that's why, for example, the British have also great interest to have a more structured system, for example, with gas pipelines in Europe, also to have to organize their supply for gas.
From Norwegian.
From Norwegian, but also from France, to Great Britain and so on. But this, I missed on this slide. I don't know in the moment how much the demand in Great Britain is. But in 3 or 4 years, we have this problem, and this problem will have 2 consequences. One consequence is a price area, and the second problem is the supply area. If my idea is okay, then we need on the supply area, there's no doubt about that, we need Nabucco, and we need the Baltic Sea pipeline, because this enlarges the security system for Europe and all. Okay, may I see the next slide? On the slide where I show new ideas from Poland, for example, to build a pipeline to Denmark and Norway.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah. I can say this is absolutely okay. And if you say from the Polish point of understanding you want to have this pipeline, then I tell you, okay, fellows, start the project. There's the problem. And if you need other pipelines, yeah, then I can say, start the project, look for investors, and start the project. Where is the problem? Is this a European problem, or is it a problem of the European, of a member state, or several member states, and so on? If you want to say you need this pipeline, then I can say, go. Yeah. But the question is, for example, for investors, I don't know, for example, is it a Polish state investment, or is it a private investment by companies and so on?
Companies investment.
Yeah.
The answer is what it takes.
The main position, like in Germany, like in France, like in Poland, or elsewhere, Sweden, Norway, Great Britain, is for investors the question, is the market interesting enough, for example, to have the responsibility for the shareholders to give the okay for this investment? In a private company, you will only get the okay for investment by the supervisory board if the company leaders were able to show you, for example, okay, this is an investment plan, and now we investment X euros or X dollars, and maybe in 7 years is the return of investment. The return of investment is the main point of an economic decision for an investment. But this is not my problem. My problem is, for example, is there are people who want to say we want to have 3 or 4 new pipelines because these pipelines are absolutely necessary for gas or for oil. Then I say, okay, fellows, start your idea and start the project, and you will have any assistance for that. Okay, next slide, please. No, the book was the other slide also was.
No. Sorry.
Okay, to the Nabucco project. The Turkish colleague mentioned this is a so-called project of European interest. What does it mean? It's okay. A project of the other side. Yeah. A project of European interest. The Nabucco pipeline starts in Turkey via Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and will end maybe in Hungary and Austria. This at first has nothing to do with an idea of the European Commission. The idea of this project was an economic idea of an Austrian company because they asked themselves, for example, in which way I'm able, for example, to get gas from the Caspian area, for example, to solve my gas security in future. And then they started this idea, and then this idea became European feed. European feed. And then in the idea of a project of European interest of the Commission, this project takes part. What this means, no European money from the European Commission. They need private investors. And the only European management idea is to say there is a European coordinator, it's a retired Netherlands Minister for Foreign Affairs. He has a task between the member countries and the private investors to start a discussion process how to hurry up this project. No more and no less. Sometimes there is a picture, for example, that such a project of European interest is an investment project by the European Commission. Nothing. It's a private idea which became European interest, and the European interest enforced this project if they organize a European coordinator. I know this very exactly because in the first idea I should become the European coordinator for this project, but I decided to be for renewables because this is more interesting. What happens here? Happens here is only one story. There are some private investors which have economic interest, and this economic interests are accompanied by political decisions. Not more. And I'm very sure maybe in 5 or 6 years the project maybe, I hope, will be finished. Okay. It's the same thing with the Nord Stream pipeline. There are private investors. The greatest investor is Gazprom itself, with more than 50% in this Nord Stream company. Then there are 2 German companies and 1 Netherlands company. And the main idea, for example, for the participation of the Netherlands in this project is the situation that the British gas goes down. And the Netherlands has great interest as a gas country, for example, to become gas from the other side, to hold this position also as a gas hub position. And this is an international private finance project, which is accompanied by, on the positive side, by Germany and other countries, and this company, they have problems with some other countries because he says from the geographical side, it is not possible to build this pipe or this tube in the Baltic Sea. But on the other hand, there are a lot of other tubes which were possible, where is the problem and so on. But this is typical European, for example, to handle such problems. Last mention in this situation, I want to say. If you look to this map, ladies and gentlemen, then it shows this map also the situation before the Cold War in 1990 was finished. The Cold War in 1990 was finished. What happened? The so-called Brotherhood pipeline and the so-called Yamal pipeline, North Rhine pipeline, and so on, was also an idea of the former Russia government, Soviet government, and the Western companies. And the story was, for example, to bring gas and oil from Russia to Western Europe. And neither Hungary, neither Poland, and the other countries were asked, for example, to allow this pipeline system. The Russians decided this pipeline were built. I remember very well, if I look for in that time to Eastern Germany, Eastern Germany, they had to pay special parts of this pipeline. Also, they had to pay new towns and so on, where the providers of this pipeline were living and so on. And there was a great so-called solidarity situation in Eastern Germany, for example, to take the responsibility for this part, but on the end of the project they had nothing. Okay. But this was the situation when the Cold War was finished. In 1990, we were all very happy, but this infrastructure system is there. This infrastructure system is there. And now we are talking about new oil and gas infrastructure, which is necessary, for example, to hold the supply and security situation in Europe. And now, Pavel Konrad showed us, for example, in the last point, what happens in the European Union with the old member states and the new member states. There is a different thinking in political aspects. There's different thinking in political aspects. And I could foresee old member states, for example, to look more to the political aspects of maybe Poland, Hungary, Czech, and also the Baltic states. But on the other hand, if there is a security problem, for example, then also we should try, for example, to find a commitment if maybe Poland or the Baltic states, the gas supply from the east doesn't work. What is possible, for example, to bring the security of the gas and the oil from the west to Poland? This is no problem because gas and oil in the pipeline are able to run from both sides. It's only a question of electricity and so on. And now I make the turn to the report of Pavel Konrad about the security directive, which were discussed in more than 4 years in the European Council and in the European Parliament. What was the idea? The idea was not, for example, to look for the security situation of Hungary, Poland, or Czech, because when this discussion started, these countries were not member states in the EU. There was a total other idea. And the main problem was Germany. And this idea. The main problem for the EU was Germany. Why? Because Germany has itself, as a consequence of the oil price shock in '73, the best security systems for oil and gas in whole Europe. Because we have a storage system, the security system, this gives us, the Germans, security maybe for 120 days. We are absolutely independent for supplies for oil and gas because we have a storage system which is private organized, but based on a law of the government for around about 120 days. And now we have in Europe a conflict. Pavel Konrad showed this conflict. What is the task of the national countries in the European Union and what is the task of the national countries? The main idea, for example, of the draft of the security directive was, from the European aspect, to socialize the German security reserves. Not we should have a responsibility, for example, to say what we are doing with our reserves. Europe wanted to do that. And I had to represent Germany in these discussions and so on, and we said no. Why we said no? And this is the point I missed in these discussions yesterday and today. Ladies and gentlemen, for the energy systems, we have security systems worldwide. based on the WTO and based on the International Energy Agency in Paris. There is a security system especially for oil, but also for gas, but especially for oil. And this security system works excellent, based not on political issues, based on the market situation, and then the International Energy Agency makes proposals to the member states what is to do. The last time when this security system worked was when two ladies visited the US. These two ladies had the name Ria and the other was Katarina. These were the two Americans in the south of the US. There the US had a problem because refinery were disturbed and you had problems with oil production in the Gulf of Mexico and so on. And the market reacted suddenly. The price goes on. And that's why within 2 days, the International Energy Agency, based on the treaties, said to the European member states of the International Energy Agency, give up a special part of your strategic oil reserves, bring it to the market, because the reaction of this was that on the price side, the market reacted and the price goes down. He had, and this is very important, he had no supply problem. He had only a problem on the price side as a consequence of the market. And that's why the political side had to react and give signals to the market that the price goes down, and the story worked excellent. So, now, why I mention this situation? Because here from our friends from Poland, Hungary, Czech, and so on, we are discussed the energy security only as a security problem of the question who are building pipelines and who is the supplier and who is the customer. And we don't talk about the main problem. What are the possible features of existing management problems to solve a security situation in the energy market? And I call this International Energy Agency. They have a council and so on, and it works exactly. And this is so important because also in the IEA Council, there are such member states like Japan, like Australia, and other states in Asia, to have an international figure. What happens and what is to do, and not only maybe a European figure. And a consequence for me, for example, of this conference is following thing. I see personal lag between the positions of the new member states of the EU, which are not members of the International Energy Agency. Paris, very, very important. I say it because I think the crisis management of these institutions are more effective in the market and in the real supply situation as to start a new complicated internal security system between 27 member states in the European Union. For example, if we would have maybe, or follow the ideas of Pavel's ideas, every idea itself makes sense. But what is to do, for example, in the relationship between the European Union and the international agencies in this question? This doesn't work. This doesn't work. And that's why I think there is necessary a new European discussions how to optimize the management based on our experiences with international agencies, with the rules of the WTO, and so on. Last position to the question, what is the position of the WTO organization? I think this is absolutely important because one of the main ideas, like of the main ideas of the European Union, is transparency and free access to the markets. This is the main idea of the WTO. Sometimes it runs, sometimes it runs not. But generally, for example, look to the discussion of the Doha round and so on, we must have more progress. And we should concentrate our political figures only to such aspects where is to organize progress. And now, 2 days ago, the future important political man in Russia, Medvedev said, okay, Russia should become as soon as possible a member of the WTO. This is a very important signal also to the energy side. Why? Because if you are a member of the WTO, you are forced, for example, to sign the energy charter. And if you sign the energy charter, then you have to have more accept, transparency, and so on and so on. This is our experiences. Maybe you have other.
There are members of WTO which didn't sign energy charter, for example, the United States.
Yeah, no, United States, you have to answer why. For example, yeah.
So it's possible.
Yeah, but no, I shall. My position is, it generally the WTO makes sense. Then we have to discuss with the US and also very important with Norway. As a main supplier for oil and gas in Europe, they are also no member of the, or they didn't sign the energy charter. From their point of understanding, it's absolutely okay, because they earn a lot of money with oil and gas, and they have a very intelligent system to bring the return of investments and so on in a state fund, financial fund, which is this is a structure for the children and the grandchildren, where Norway has maybe in 100 years no more gas and no more oil. And then they say this is only our problem, and we are not interested, for example, that we want to discuss with other people about transparency in our investment fund and so on. This is the position of the Norwegian government. I have to accept like the position of the government of the US. But it makes no sense, for example, to give up this battle. We have to find arguments, for example, if you talk more transparency is necessary in the energy side, then we have to discuss where are the platforms to organize more transparency. And this is not the idea, for example, to found new European rules or so on. From my point of understanding, we have to enlarge and to enforce the discussion based on the positive aspects, international aspects up till now, in which way the systems like the International Energy Agency in Paris, WTO, and so on are working. And this is in general a misunderstanding in the European Union between the member states and the Commission itself. I think by the Commission, it's not only the idea to solve a problem. The European Commission has a total other idea. They want to have power and they want to decide. And there are some member states say this is not our idea of a transparency working Europe. Sorry, it was a little bit long, but I want to give you my personal point of understanding. Thank you for that.
If I might have just a brief comment on what Mr. Adamovich said. Thank you very much for this additional. Very interesting, because I can tell you it's unusual in our Europe to be able to listen to somebody from our responsible person from our countries, whether it is Poland or Germany or France or others, speaking so openly about member state interests as you are. It's really good because it's good.
I'm not more in charge.
But I would like to. Okay, first comment is on international agency, all right, the mechanism created by International Energy Agency seems works, which is good. Poland already became member of the agency. Fortunately, there are some other countries EU members which are not yet the members yet. We should introduce them as fast as possible, help them, assist them. You know, Baltic states, Bulgaria, Romania. We should do it. So this is first. The second, I would like to go back to my. Oh no. Okay, this slide. You see, I would like to return to a certain dinner we had, both of us, and certain drawings on napkins on the table. And what we...
But it was good.
And what we tried to draw was a map of Europe. And we agreed that in terms of gas supplies to Europe, Europe can be divided, into two parts, southern and northern. And southern part relies on, basically, on North Africa, probably the Gulf, and Russia. And the northern part relies on Norway, LNG, and Russia. And there is no, you see, if you mention, for example, Nabucco project as something which could solve British problems, it doesn't work like that. You agree. What I added to this major picture was that the Europe in these terms could be divided also into Western and Eastern part. And Poland is somewhere, at the corner. Here. Sorry? I touched Poland. So it's at the corner because the first division line goes like that, and the second goes like that. And we would like to join this quarter together with Germany, France, and Britain, and to rely on Norwegian and Russian supplies as well, not stay on this quarter when countries rely only on the Russian side. And if we agree on that, then probably many things would be easier to resolve.
Jutta, I agree with you generally, but then one point is important from my personal point of understanding. The main idea of a free market is the free access to the grids or to the pipelines. This is very important. There must be organized, like for example, the discussion you have actually in Turkey, to change energy laws and so on, because the free access, the free entrance for independent providers to the established net is very important, and this is one of the main backbones for a free trade in this area, for a free trade on this area. And that's why I think we should discuss in Europe, but also worldwide, about this question, to have a better understanding, for example, of free access, of the influence of free access to the existing or also to new nets based on gas and based on electricity. And then we can forget national borders and so on. And then the system itself, if there is a supply problem maybe from the north or from the east, can be organized from one moment to the other, maybe from the west or from the south. And about these items, we should intensify our discussions when we discuss about security, because this is one of the economic backbones of security. I can discuss security only based on political ideas and political necessity and so on, based on infrastructure. This has nothing to do with development in a market, with the development in the market. If I have on the other side private investors, and if I have on the other side private customers, I'm not able, for example, on the one way to organize a political organized system, for example, to supply energy for a free market with private customers. This makes in a market situation, from my personal understanding, no sense. And that's why we have to discuss about frameworks, and we have to discuss about international management problems and security ideas. And then we have to discuss, for example, okay, if there's something for European directive or for national law, then we should do it, for example, to organize the free entrance to a market, also as a security system for situations where a security problem is there.
For crisis.
For crisis, yeah, for crisis. But the main idea, for example, in European of the Commission was not to organize a security systems. They said, if we think about a security system, then we think about more directive competences for the Commission itself to say what in Germany, France, Italy, or so on should be happening. And everybody knows, for example, if a political situation, a directive, becomes more and more complicated, and then the question, where's the democratic basis and so on, what is the position of the parliament and the role of the parliament in the crisis situation and so on. This is the death of a market. This is the death of a market. And that's why we should more discuss economic aspects, security aspects, international aspects to solve security problems or crisis problems. And we should discuss, for example, what is the problem of the Duma in Moscow, why they didn't sign the Energy Charter. Why did Norway sign the Energy Charter? For example, why didn't the US sign the Energy Charter, and why is not the US, the United States, member of the Kyoto process and so on? These are the main problems, for example, we have to discuss about that, because if we find solutions in these discussions, this is the best basis for more transparency, for more competitive situation, for more security, and also for more liability. I'm sorry.
Excuse me if I...
I'm not, you know, I'm socialist, but I'm a fan of functional markets.
But just like two less very brief comments. Firstly, coming back to what I said, in my opinion, was missing in European policy. I fully agree that the external dimension is missing. And among this, as this is like too big subject to discuss everything, but among these things is IEA, International Energy Agency. And I also I also think that replacing or like doubling, in fact, the IEA mechanism, which is already working and which is operating since long time, and which is in the oil market, which is globalized, has not only European partners. This is, it's better to assist other European members to join the IEA rather than making a second system overlapping, in fact, on the European Commission level without this experience, and making them, in fact, having also trouble which stocks. If we have one physical stock, where we release it. I fully agree, and then I'm also a strong supporter of maybe, if it would be possible, of further developing like similar mechanisms for the gas within the framework of IEA, because this is also becoming a global market. And I agree that in European policy, one thing which is totally missing is like looking at the external world and looking how we find ourselves also with relation to IEA, with relation to WTO. So this is like full agreement. One last comment about the Energy Charter. Personally, I think, and like most of the people, it would be great if Russia would sign to this, but I think we know since around 1.5 years that they will never sign to this. I remember when there was Mr. Medvedev, the future very important figure in Russia, in European Parliament in Strasbourg, future very important political place probably, and he said on the question of one of the parliamentarians when they will sign the Energy Charter, he started laughing. It was a very arrogant moment, and he started laughing and said, never. But come on, how you can ask such a question? We told you so many times we will never. And all the most of the MEPs were very shocked because they were quite not aware of this, while everyone in Brussels, apart from them, was aware of this. And they called Commissioner Piebalgs for the special hearing in front of the Parliament to explain the situation. And Commissioner Piebalgs said, yes, in fact, we don't say this publicly, but in fact, yeah, it's true. Many times they signal that they will probably never sign it. The reason is very simple, and it's not maybe very simple, but when the Energy Charter was negotiated, Russia was in different position, the prices were in different, there were different prices. Right now, giving for them the access to even the transmission system, giving the opportunity for Western companies already present in the Caspian to just make a transit, or after exploration to just transit this to the West, would mean that the whole strategy, yes, I mean, this would break the monopoly, but it also means that this would go against the legal acts of Duma, which were taken, let's say, giving the monopoly to Gazprom. So this is just two questions, but I fully agree on the external part of the
Direct to this two questions. I represented the federal government at the G8 energy meeting in Moscow. And there was internal discussions with Putin, Medvedev on the Russian side, and the Japanese, Canadians, and the European members, G8 members. And the main question in this discussions, with not more than 11 people, of Putin was, because we were talking also about the challenge of the energy part. He said, yes, but I'm only able, for example, to force this process in Russia if you trust us. If you trust us. And in the moment we have in this situation, discussions, for example, there's no trust to Russia. And that's why the reason why Russia, the government and the Duma, and I don't want to talk about the influence from the government to Duma and so on, it's not my problem. Before not, the free world, for example, gives signals to Russia. We started discussions with Russia based on trust. We were not able, for example, to enforce the discussions that Russia should become a member of sign the Energy Charter. I will give you a second example. This was the question of the consequences of the Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol. And the Kyoto Protocol, based on international law, only became a legal position when Russia signed the protocol. The position of the US, for example, is clear. And we had discussions with Russia about that, but we had no public discussions about that. And the last point was the discussions between Chancellor Schröder and Putin about the necessity that Russia signs the Kyoto Protocol. And this was absolutely successful, and Russia signed the Kyoto Protocol. Sometimes you have to discuss in closed rooms, and then you can also put the trigger to your friends and say, okay, friends, the world has two sides, and only discuss on the one side of a matter. This is not the idea, for example, to solve problems. And based on such situation, for example, you can discuss with the Russians, and also to targets. Also with the US government, but they are as a hard rock like the Russians, if you talk about energy politics, or if you talk about climate politics and so on. Sorry, but discussions are necessity, and to bring arguments is necessity, and to invite to these discussions, this is necessary, and not to produce new ideas which makes the world more complicated, and at the end of the story there is no solution.
Thank you, Mr. Andamovich. I just wanted to point out that you keep pointing to me when you talk about the United States. I'm not representing the U.S. government here. We had somebody who was supposed to represent the U.S. government who couldn't make it in time for the conference because he was in Brussels. He also did not send us a paper. This discussion would have gone slightly differently, I suspect, also had our Ukrainian friend been here, Mr. Bogdan Sokolovsky, who couldn't make it for similar reasons. He, however, did send a statement, and if any of you would like it, it's here on the podium, and I invite you to take a copy before you leave. For those of us who are in the conference, I'll send everybody a copy electronically so you will have it. It is not very often that we receive high-ranking officials from the European Union who come without a prepackaged statement. Most of the time, we receive actually quite a few EU commissioners who know what they want to say, have said it on more than one occasion, and speak ex cathedra. It's refreshing to find somebody who not even has a cathedra, but is willing to engage in an open dialogue with people who are wrestling with the same questions from a slightly different perspective. And what we saw over the last 2 days are national perspectives where governments are choosing their own path in what is becoming an increasingly difficult situation. And the European Union, which is also searching for solutions, and now it seems coming to the conclusion that maybe these solutions are not to be found within EU policy, but higher within the World Trade Organization. That means a very different discussion and a larger number of players involved, and it makes things even more difficult. That may be the only response, that may be the only solution to this. And in the meantime, I'm sure what we will see is in Europe many more discussions. This is not the first time that we've met with Mr. Naimski or Mr. Konzel, and I'm willing to bet you it's not the last time either. I suspect that this kind of a discussion actually has some merit on this side of the Atlantic. That is to take it out of the context of Europe and bring it to a more neutral setting here in the United States. And I'd just like to say that Colombia is a good place to do this. We have many more people that are in the audience today who would like to jump in and participate in discussions like this. So why don't we agree that this was just the first part of a discussion which inevitably will develop in a different direction as time goes on. I'd like to thank our participants for coming to New York and participating in this, particularly given the weather today and the possibility that you may have to spend another day in New York, although we hope everybody gets home when they should. This meeting will be available online, I hope, in 2 or 3 weeks. It will be announced. And at the end of, I hope, not such a long period, there may also be a publication. If everybody behaves correctly and sends us their remarks in some sort of editable form so that we can act quickly and make a contribution to what is in essence no longer just a European discussion, but a global. So thank you very much for coming to Colombia, and I hope to see you again very soon.